Hello, my name is Eliana Lopez, and today I will be talking about adverse childhood experiences. Firstly, what is adverse childhood experiences, also known as ACEs? Adverse childhood experiences are when someone experiences something that may be traumatizing under the age 18 and below. Unfortunately, these experiences are always negative. Adverse childhood experiences can also be used to refer to any kind of abuse towards a child. This can affect the person throughout their whole life as well into adulthood, and there can also be physical abuse, sexual, emotionally, and psychologically. What are examples of adverse childhood experiences? This can range from any kind of abuse emotionally, physically, religiously. It could be neglect from a parent, it could be any kind of sexual abuse, rape, death from a family member close to you or a parent, hitting, physical abuse, verbally abusing by degrading words or manipulation, withholding a child from having basic necessities like using the bathroom, showering, eating, having water, or normal functions. This can also include threats, yelling, any kind of aggression towards a young child, not letting the child have the correct shelter, housewise, not letting them sleep in a bed, forcing them to stay in other places where they don't belong. This can also be examples of divorce, mental illness, if drugs are involved around the family, around a young child. Emotionally, this can become a huge impact on a child and can affect them throughout the rest of their life. Unfortunately, with all of these things and the child being around it, this may become normalized with them and their future. And this may rub off on them and they may start to do the same things that they were grown up around in their household, like drugs, alcohol, any kind of substance abuse. Moving on, when you talk about the physical characteristics, the social, and the cognitive, unfortunately, by being surrounded by traumatic events, it can take a huge toll on the development, not even just physically, but inside mentally as well. And this can also affect you cognitively. Um, Physically, there can be an increase in heart disease, heart attacks, obesity, or diabetes due to possibly overeating, causing stress. There could be delayed and impaired brain development due to so much trauma and memory loss at a young age, and this can also cause an altered stress response when dealing with certain trauma and not knowing how to handle it. Socially, you can have trouble forming certain relationships with people around you and isolating yourself, not knowing how to make friendships stay strong around you or have anyone close. You can have a higher risk of falling into the wrong crowd and following with people who are doing the opposite of what you should be due to possibly growing up around the same crowd and thinking it's normalized. This can include, again, substance abuse and doing drugs and alcohol. This can also cause higher levels of stress and aggression towards people around you that you love and towards yourself, and have more trouble communicating openly and expressing feelings like a regular person should be able to. Cognitively, you can have a lower chance of succeeding academically, have less desire to want to attend school, and have overall no chance of wanting to continue school. Unfortunately, this can make you lose all motivation to do regular things on a daily basis. This can also have higher risks to mental health like depression, bipolar disorder, anxiety, and most importantly, post traumatic stress disorder. It is unfortunate to say that the more a child experiences traumatic events, the higher the risk is for all characteristics and more issues later on in life. This all plays out depending on how much trauma can be endured during the childhood under the age of 18. These issues do not disappear over time, and it is something that will continue to follow you throughout life into adulthood. This can lead to psychological and mental issues later on in life. And also, dealing with certain kinds of trauma can also slow down brain development and have you fall more behind when you're supposed to be. and or as cognitively developed as your peers. Now, how does adverse childhood experiences play into actual development? Physically, development has a huge part in playing into trauma because, like I said earlier, this affects brain development, memory, and severe issues controlling emotions regularly. Due to certain children growing up in households with drugs and substance abuse normalized, it can already have attacks on the underdeveloped brain, which will continue to have long term effects. Emotionally and psychologically, there can be heightened moods of anger, anxiety, sadness, and you being unable to control emotions due to the lack of communication in the household. The levels increase for post traumatic stress disorder and other health conditions as well. Socially, socially, there will be no trouble forming relationships with people. Oh no, well, there will be trouble. Apologies. Um, on a deep level, you will not be able to have good connection and communication, forming a relationship. There will be no trust in relationship with friends or family. There will also be more of a chance of less socialization and more isolation, excuse me. Cognitively, there can be issues in development and decision making throughout your life, not even just childhood, but this can also affect you in your adult age as well. And growing up, basically throughout your whole life, it can affect you if not resolved. But there can be high levels of impulse and irrational thinking, low academic desire, missing school, or not being active and consistent. These issues If these issues are not eventually recognized, the risk of mental issues will increasingly get worse. But resources that can help are therapy and good mental health resources overall, or having a good support system and friends around you that know how to help. Moving on, here are some images showing the difference between a normal brain and a brain after enduring trauma. Right here, it shows how a 3-year-old child's brain can shrink due to extreme neglect and not knowing how to regulate emotions when living in a constant state of emotional stress. This also gives a greater risk of health problems. And showing over here, it can range from cognitively affecting your brain development, physical development, your emotions, and your relationships with people, your mental health, and your behavior overall. And then over here, it shows the difference between a healthy brain, and you have it showing by your frontal lobe how the brain scan has a lot more. Oh, wow. Yeah, you can see right there. There's a lot more different colors. Over here, you have active parts, and now there's less active parts in the brain. It's very unfortunate. Moving on, talking about how culture plays into adverse childhood experiences. Culture can influence a child's life by setting examples for their spirituality and sociability. Children can experience discrimination and poverty if they are raised in a low income area, and there can also be discrimination towards race, sexual orientation, and if you have any disabilities. They can also be discriminated against if they are not from a specific area or certain religions that have different beliefs, which will also have a huge impact on their childhood. Being forced to believe in things that they may not want to believe in. And around this age, children start to try and form their own opinion. And if this is not allowed in a household, they will continue to not want to communicate or have a voice growing up. Um, some religions have beliefs that may be sexist, homophobic, or discriminatory and have certain outlooks. And spiritual abuse, also known as religious abuse, can impact a child's development by confining them to cruel beliefs, like I just said. Continuing that, some examples of cultural and religious trauma can be sexual abuse around churches, sexual assault, or women in certain countries, specifically Muslim women who have to abide by men's decisions based on relationships, marriage, and children, and they have no choice on the decision that they want to make or who the person that they want to be with is. being forced to believe in something, not having your own beliefs, not being accepted for your individualism. And this could be talking about sexual orientation, sexual preference, degraded due to certain beliefs, physical and mental abuse, and trying to have certain expectations to please family. This can also cause severe isolation, depression, and anxiety. Continuing on, why this should be prevented and how it can be. Unfortunately, children under the age of 18 experience trauma more commonly than people recognize. Things you can do to help prevent this is make a safe environment for your children. Do not expose them to anything that they shouldn't be exposed to, drug-wise, alcohol, aggression. Trying not to project trauma onto the children. If they're exposed, you can always help by doing therapy, building a slow form of trust. Some people try and suggest medication, but I don't think it's very suggested. That is my opinion. But moving on, this just shows some examples of the rates of what people can get due to childhood trauma in their future: smoking, obesity, depression, asthma, diabetes, kidney disease, cancer, a lot of behavior issues, health conditions. But wrapping this up, any kind of trauma that is reflected on a child will affect their life, especially as they get older. If issues are not resolved or brought any kind of awareness, this may have more of a risk of having severe mental issues increasingly in the future. Almost every child has a traumatic experience in their childhood, which can range from any kind of abuse all over the world, especially due to different cultures and beliefs. Adverse childhood experiences interfere with development mentally, physically, and cognitively, which will continue to lead to future psychological problems. And that is it. And then this is all of my resources and all of the links that I've used. Thank you.